All right. Well, we are live for the first time with Joe Volk.
How's it going?
So good, man. We got some people tuning in. I can see some comments of anticipation saying, I'll be there, amped for this. So if you are watching, we're going to be using the comments tonight, and we're going to have a ton of fun. So super stoked for everyone that's tuning in. And if you are with us live already, why don't you just in the comments let us know where you're checking in from and signing in from and watching. As you do that, I'm just going to let you know kind of the format for tonight. I don't want to talk a lot. Joe is the guest, but Joe's our guest, and we're stoked to have you. And so the goal is for everyone watching to ask your questions, and then I'm going to moderate them. I'm going to get them over to Joe, and we're going to answer them live. So knowing all of that, let's just remember to be gracious. Let's remember that we're all in this together. Let iron sharpen iron if it may. But we're here to have a good time, to encourage one another in the Lord. And I'm super stoked for everyone that's joining. So let's just check real quick. We have Brandon from Los Angeles, Monique from Warner Robins, Georgia, South Lake, Texas. That's Jacob. Audio, it is not working well. Is it my mic? Is it too loud? No?
We'll find out.
I don't know. That's Toady. I don't know. Adam McKeague, hello from Northern Ireland, 1 a.m. God bless you, bro.
Dude, come on.
Joseph, Buffalo, New York, not far from me in Toronto. And then a whole ton of people. Okay. So before we get to some questions, let me just fill in everyone who's tuning in. Are we going to do these all the time? Let me just try to answer some of those questions. What we're doing tonight is an extension of what I've been doing in the Worship Drummer Green Room, and I'm not here to talk about that. Basically, people were paying $7 a month for these kind of conversations that we're doing tonight. And to be honest, it was good. My heart, though, is to reach everyone. And so I don't think $7 was a big barrier of entry to begin with. But for whatever reason, when you put it behind the paywall, it's just harder to access. So we're coming to you now for the first time, streaming on YouTube. And so if we have glitches, just be patient, be gracious. We're going to get through this, and we're going to make it better and better. So with that being said, we want to make it free and accessible to everyone, and that's why we're here on YouTube live tonight. And so, Joe, we first met for the first time face to face at the Catch the Fire.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what year that was. 2017-ish. 16?
Dude, I think it was 2015. I think it was the September 2015.
Wow.
I think that was the last time I was there.
Yeah, so we did that, and that was my first time watching you play live. The big takeaway from that night for me was your hi-hat, just going at it. And I was like, man, I've never thought about developing the left foot to keep times quite like that. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
And then full circle, just to a couple of months ago here in Toronto again, on the People Tour with Hillsong United. You were playing for Amanda Lindsay Cook. Mac Brock. I can't believe I said that. Sorry, that was Dan McMurray. So for
that's all good.
For everyone, it's because I have water in the cup instead of coffee.
Oh, there you go.
But for everyone that's tuning in, stick with us till the end, because we have some video content that we're going to play. It's unreleased vlog footage, if you will. It's going to go live on our YouTube channel tomorrow. So just going to put the teaser out there. We're going to have a ton of fun tonight. So we're here to ask your questions to Joe. So I'm just going to check what's come in so far. Brandon Chen is asking, how did you get your start with Bethel? And so here's the question coming in.
That's the question?
That's the question. How did you get your start with Bethel?
Well, I was playing drums in Charlotte, North Carolina, with some worship leaders down there, and that's where I'm from. I grew up in Charlotte. My dad had a church out there, and I grew up playing drums at his church, and just kind of, got to know a lot of the musicians in the area and started playing around. And a buddy of mine, David Valier, who's a worship leader at Morning Star Church, brought me out to California to play a couple shows with him. We came through Redding and met a lot of the guys out here and just built relationships with them, and then ended up flying out to visit for a week. This is probably 2012 now. Early 2012, I came out and visited for a week, and on the very last day, well, let me say, the first time I came through Redding, I hated it. I was like, I don't know why people live here. It's hot. There's nothing to do. I'm never coming back. But then when I visited again, met all the people, and it just started making a lot of sense to me why everyone came out. It was for the culture, it was for the community, for the church, and what God's doing out here. And on the last night of my visit, I had, for the first time, felt the Lord directing me in my life to an area where it was like, this is the only way to go. So yeah, I moved out like 4 months later and just got connected with the community and, started playing at the church and started touring.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that answers the question very well. By the way, if you're just tuning in, welcome. We got 43 watching. And hey, if you're watching, if there's a way for you to share this out, I want to try to hit 100 before we end this, and share the sneak peek of what's launching tomorrow in terms of the vlog.
If we get 100 viewers, I'll get a 100 tattooed on my arm.
Don't you already have one?
Well, yeah. All right.
Love it. I don't know how I would know that either.
I mean.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Keep it 100, kids.
Nice. Okay, next question from Andy. Are the Panthers making the playoffs this year?
Andy, yes, they are. We are going to go 11-4, and that's bad math because it's going to be 12-4, and we're going to get a first round bye, and we're going to beat 2 teams, and then we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Nice.
How it's going to happen. I'm pumped.
Love it.
I'm actually very optimistic about this year, more than most. And I have a super dope shirt that I got. And I'll run and get it if you want.
Love it. Paul, not really a question, but he's like, how crazy is it that we get to chat with Joe Volk live? And laughing face. Guys, he's just a human being. But he's a cool dude for sure. Okay, sizes on that Silver Sparkle Ludwig kit that you used with Mac Brock on tour, and tell us the backstory to whose kit that is. I thought that was fascinating.
So the sizes were 22 by 20, 16 by 16, and 13 by 9. It was an amazing 1960s Ludwig kit, mint condition. And it's funny because on that tour, Mac is in Charlotte, and didn't have a way to get my gear from California to the tour that was starting in Texas. So I had to find gear either in Nashville or Charlotte to bring out for the whole tour to put on his bus in the trailer. to ride up with the gear from Charlotte, and I was calling some buddies I knew. Nothing really was landing, and then Mac, his mom is actually a drummer, and she had called him and was like, "Hey, I have this awesome kit if he wants it." And so Matt texted me, the kit and what it was, and texted me a picture, and I was like, "Yeah, let's bring that. That is so cool." So I actually ended up playing Mac's mom's kit for the whole tour. It was
insane,
awesome.
eh?
Yeah, it was awesome.
So cool. And it sounded sick on that tour stop in Toronto, I must add.
Yeah.
Let's continue. There are a ton of questions coming in, so we're going to try to move through them.
Yeah.
Here's a question from Price Couch. How do you get that snare sound? I love it.
Hey, Price. I like your name. Well, my snare, if you're talking about like the Bethel snare sound, what we use at the church is
it's sampled.
Yeah, right. Well, it's actually not sampled.
I know.
So we use a 14x8 brass snare. Use 32 strings on the bottom, and then we've had just a method of tuning, and we use a 1-inch mute ring. I don't know, what do you call them? I don't even know what they're called.
Pretty much.
But either that or moon gels, and we crank the bottom so that it's still responsive, because with the 8 inches it's harder to hear ghost notes if it's more if it's not as tight. So yeah, we crank the bottom, and then just get the top to where you like it and put the ring on. My snare is a 14x8 chrome over steel, which I love. It's a bit brighter, but it still carries the beefiness of 14x8.
Is that your go-to snare, like, for everything?
For worship, yep. Yeah. I'll use that for most all of the worship stuff that I do. If I'm in the studio and I'm looking for, a deeper sound like that, it's kind of like an automatic, sounds awesome, But yeah. I have for Stephanie's record, Blackout, we were going for more of like a poppy, tighter sound, and I used my 14x5 acrylite, Ludwig acrylite. Yeah, and we actually did a live release show, and I used it then too, and it sounded awesome. So it's different for whatever you're working on, but for worship music, I typically am always using the 14x8 chrome over steel or the brass.
Nice. Another question, snare related, from Adam McKeague. What snare drum do you recommend that is affordable?
You might know this better than me. I haven't looked at snare drum prices in a long time, because I've just stuck with the collection that I've had. Acrylites are awesome and cheap if you find anything in the 60s. I like the early 60s. They'll have that older batch. Those are amazing. They're hard to get to dial in, but once you dial them in, then it's like, it's money. I don't know how much Ludwig Black Beauties are. Probably around 6 to 8.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Living in Canada, everything is high for us.
Yeah. Blackbird drums are good. They're awesome. I don't know how much they are.
Yeah, I would. The Blackbird Sunday series, I think, is like 400 range.
Yeah.
And I've heard that they sound great.
And I have a maple Blackbird snare, 14x8.
Nice.
Yeah, Blackbird makes great affordable drums.
Sweet. Next question, getting a little more into the technical side of drumming. Mm-hmm. Zach Silk is asking, how do you get started using drum pads and samples?
Say that one more time. You were breaking up.
Oh, how do you get started using drum pads and samples?
In a worship setting, or just
Yeah, I'd say let's stick to assume
So,
it's worship.
Yeah, so about, I don't even know, 4 or 5 years ago, I got a Roland SPD-SX, and the newer version, the one with the red on it, is so user-friendly. It's really easy to upload samples. It comes with like a wave manager, and it has like a picture of each pad, and you just drag and drop basically the audio file into the pad. So yeah, I would recommend getting that. And then as far as like using it in a worship setting, we did a whole album that was more stripped back. We Will Not Be Shaken. I don't even know how long ago that was, 4 or 5 years ago. And it was heavily using those drum pads. So that was fun because that kind of gave us a lot of freedom to use it. And it almost showed us how to use them tastefully while translating the songs into bigger versions. So, we didn't have hi-hats or anything during the recording. We just had, bells and tambourines and a cymbal. So, translating those songs into bigger live versions, it kind of showed us how to use samples tastefully and not overplay them. So yeah, adding in verbed out stuff over snares or even using them as substitutes in verses, it gets fun.
Very cool. How much money up front would someone need to put down to buy like a decent drum pad and some samples?
I'm actually not sure on price. Again, prices, I know that when I bought the SPD, it was $800. It may have gone down. I'm not sure. But that's definitely the one that I would recommend. So user-friendly. Samples, you can get samples anywhere. My buddy Simon has a spot, Bottega. You've got that iwantthatsound.com, which is Paul Mayberry's library, which is so many, millions of samples. The only trick with those is you'll have to bounce them down to fit the bit ratio. You know what it is? I think it's...
They're 24, you got to bring them down to 16?
Yes.
And if you check Worship Drummer's channel, there's a video explaining how to do that.
Oh, I love it.
Boom.
So you can do that in Ableton, you can do it in Pro Tools, anywhere that you can bounce down.
Yeah.
Stem.
Really cool. Here's a good question from Paul Drums. He's asking, what do you do for really small spaces? Shield, no shield, hot rods?
The shield, the drum shield. I have a love-hate relationship with drum shields, but they are necessary and they do help, especially in small rooms. You can get creative in smaller spaces without having to resort to stick alternatives. So you can keep your sticks, play with dynamics, play lightly, and SPDs are awesome for small rooms because they add a whole nother percussive element that's going to come out really clear through the PA. You could even do for like stripped down setups, you can sit on a cajon or something and have the kick pedal where your heel's pushing up against the pedal, and then you do, you could even have an SPD, a ride, or a hi-hat and a snare, and maybe a floor tom or something, and just get creative,
Yep, that's really good. Next question is from Jesse Brown.
I know Jesse Brown from Australia.
I'm not sure from where, but I think they know you. Is Bethel your forever church, or will you move home one day?
Oh man, I think no matter where I end up, Bethel will always be my home church. But yeah, Charlotte, my parents live there, all my family lives there. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up back there in 10, 15 years, but you never know.
Never know. And then later on, Jesse says, also, I miss you.
Miss you too, Jesse.
All right, next question from Jacob Gifford. What is the best way to audition for mega churches, and in brackets, Gateway? That's a pretty interesting question.
That is an interesting question. I think all church audition processes are different. But what we've found that works at Bethel is submitting video auditions. I actually just recently went over some of the first year auditions. So there's a school at Bethel, BSSM, and it is there's a first year and a second year program, and both programs have worship teams. And what they do is they have all the drummers that want to audition send in videos, and then we'll go through those videos and pick out the guys who we think could make it on one of the teams. And so they get called in for a live audition. And then the live audition process, basically they play, usually we put the guitar player and drummers together so that the drummer can be playing with a solid bass player and the keyboard isn't running all over, so we'll have two of our guys up there and then two of their guys, and then we'll do bass and keys together. And then makes it easy to hear, clear. Video and then a live audition, and then but I don't know how Gateway does it.
Right. How would you prepare? Let's say it was you auditioning, Joe. How would you prepare, let's say, knowing, multitracks, click, and all that stuff, just in case some listeners are here who don't play at their church in that capacity? Oh, we'll be back in a second. We're gonna get right back on there. I think the call dropped. We'll bring Joe back in. There we go.
There we are.
I don't know what happened. Sorry, folks. But we're all good. Joe, you still there? One second. Yeah, I think we're back. Let me just bring you into the call again. Sorry, folks. We're almost back here. Oh, I see. 1 second. I think I did something. Apparently there's an advanced call setting. Everyone's gonna hate me for this. If you're still listening and you can hear me, I love you. Turn on NDI in Skype's advanced calling settings. If anyone knows where that is, advanced call. Let's click call. Oh, advanced. Almost there. There we go. All right.
There we are.
We are back. I apologize. Oh yeah, so we were talking about if so for people who might not be playing with click or like multi-tracks at their church, how would you approach preparing for that? Because I would assume Gateway, if it's the Gateway in Texas I'm thinking of,
right,
then they would need to have their chops in order for that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to any drummer that isn't playing with the click yet to start playing with the click. And it's really accessible these days with iPhones or any smartphone. You can download a metronome app and just start playing rudiments to them, start playing grooves on the kick to them. It's really easy. Put in your headphones and really get that down, because anyone who's auditioning at a church of that magnitude is going to be needing to know how to play to a click at the very, very minimal. Yeah.
Another question from Brandon Chen. What does a typical worship rehearsal look like at Bethel? How do we bring that same culture of excellence to our home churches where we may not all feel motivated to play?
Yeah. So one thing that we do in the beginning of each rehearsal is make sure that our ears are dialed in. So that's massive to playing together and being able to hear everyone. And so what we do is we start off with the drums, and we get a drum mix. So the drummer will play a simple beat, add in fills, cymbals, so that you can bring in overheads and everything. And if you're using in-ears, you tell your mix engineer, or even if you have your own thing, until everyone's dialed in on drums. And then you add bass. Drums and bass play together, guitar right, guitar left, keys, vocals, guitars. And that takes about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on, if the mix is close in the beginning or not. And we're talking like Sunday morning, right? So then once we're there, we'll hit the first song usually. For us, rehearsals right now, we don't have a separate day to rehearse. So we come in prepared, knowing the songs, knowing the set lists, knowing the keys, the tempos, the tracks, whatever. We come in prepared that Sunday morning. So for our 8 a.m., we get there at 6:50. And we get set up and usually have about 45 minutes to 50 minutes to run over songs for the 8 a.m. and the 10:30, which is usually 4 or 5 songs. So we'll do what I just said about checking your ears, and then we'll run the first song. You do mix changes, tweaks in between songs, the worship leaders will get their ears dialed during their songs. So typically we come in knowing that everyone's going to be coming and knowing their parts, and trusting everyone has done their work on the front end.
Good.
But if you do have time to 2 to 3 hours on a separate day to really iron out new songs or come up with a new arrangement of your own, I mean that's awesome.
Nice. Next question comes from Chris Asensio. What's your favorite Zildjian cymbal?
Oh man, that's a tough question, because all Zildjian cymbals are amazing. I would say my go-to, my number one ride or die, would be the 24-inch K-Lite ride. I've been using it since I was 17 and haven't looked back. The supporting cast I've changed a bit, and depending on what set I'm playing and where I'm playing, the cymbals around it change, but the ride has always been the 24-inch K-Lite. So probably that.
Nice. All right, so someone's catching up to our conversation, that something I brought up from earlier on about your left foot hi-hat. So let's dive into that a bit. who did you, or what made you start, playing 16th notes with your left foot, and then the why behind that?
Yeah, so when I lived in Charlotte, there was actually, he's a really good friend of mine. His name's Jacob Arnold. He's an amazing drummer, played with Matt Redman, Chris Tomlin, Johnny Swim, Elevation, a lot of guys in worship music, and is now out in Nashville. But he and I were watching the Killers live at Royal Albert Hall together. And I had noticed, actually, that Jacob was the first guy who I had seen do it live, where I was like, oh man, it adds so much. Because you can be washing or keeping it nice and tight, and it adds such a cool percussive element. And we were just studying Ronnie Vannucci a little bit during that show, and he was, 16th notes nonstop. And I would just remember watching that and being like, I have got to get that down because that is so freaking cool. So yeah, Ronnie Vannucci was probably the main influence of that, but Jacob Arnold as well.
Very sweet. Do you intentionally decide, like, okay, this song, I'm going to do it, this song is too fast, or is it just like a natural response now?
It is a natural response at this point, but I have to be careful because sometimes it's too much. So, it's kind of like a natural thing to play 16ths even, and, a turnaround where it's supposed to just be kind of chill and open with kick and tom. So it's actually become something that I'm more aware if I'm to not do it, then, like I'll make a mental note to not do it,
Yeah.
But yeah, you can also, you don't have to go crazy. I try to do, a quarter note, eighth note, 16th note variable, like even in verses or something, starting with an eighth note if you're on like a tom, and then, verse B moving into the 16th note.
Nice.
Too, because it just adds an extra boost.
Yeah. Cool. Couple of questions. One from Kyle, who's here in Canada, and then Jared Batson in Australia. And so, kind of the similar question. Kyle wants to know about the Tambo effect for the sample, how to get that full fat sound. But then Jared's asking, is there any chance of a Bethel drum perk sample pack being released for SPD use?
So David Whitworth and I have talked about it so much, about just getting into the studio for 2 weeks and releasing samples, but we've just gotten so busy that we haven't been able to. The Tambo effect, actually, Bobby Strand, who produced a lot of the records earlier on, came up with that sample. But it's somewhere. It's somewhere in the
in the
internet
world.
Verse. Yeah, it's in someone's email.
I think I remember David Whitworth on Facebook once, like just a bunch. I don't know how the thread started, but he was like, everyone's like, please send it to me too, to me. So whether I don't know. If I ever get it, I will make it available. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God.
Imagine. That being said,
drummer.com, green room.
Yeah. Well,
Perfect.
I am working on a side project this year, worshipdrumsamples.com.
Yes.
The reason why it's at I don't want to say stalemate, but I'm at a fork in the road, and if you're listening, Worship Drummer family, feel free to leave a comment, because I value your input, and Joe, yours too. There's a fork in the road of, do we go with, like the question that Jared had, like, can we make these actual sounds available, these samples? Like you would go to multitracks.com, to buy the stems. You would go to worshipdrumsamples.com, buy the samples. And what I found through that whole journey is every single thing is different. You know, it's like, well, oh yeah, I made them in my basement. And the drummer says. The next person's like, well, it's the producer. I have no idea. They just give me the stuff and I play them live at the worship nights.
Right.
You know, then the other people are like, well, you have to talk to the label. And so that's the one side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side is just, almost like a loopcommunity.com approach where we make them as close as possible, but they're not the actual originals. So,
right.
As close as possible. So I'm just curious if the worship drummer community wants to chime in. Which one would you prefer? The originals or like sounds like?
Yeah, I would prefer the originals, but I'm also kind of a stickler when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think a lot of people would really find even sounds really close to it, samples, very helpful.
Yeah. So let's talk after this, Joe.
Yeah.
Anyways, good questions, guys. We're gonna get to a few more. We're gonna go maybe about 9 more minutes, and then we're gonna roll some sneak peeks of some video footage that we captured from the People Tour, Hillsong United, where Joe was also playing with Mac. I got this right this time. All right, so let's see here. Please save the video or upload it. Yeah, this is gonna stay on the YouTube channel, so Robinson Torres, you'll get to watch this as many times as you want later. Got some Portuguese, from Brazil. What's up, Bruno?
Hey, Brazil.
Nogueira.
I had a great time in Brazil when I went. Rio Jesus.
All right, so here we go. Kenneth, how do you learn songs efficiently for church services? I think that's a pretty cool question.
Yeah, that is cool. So our rule of thumb at Bethel is, stick to an arrangement, and then once you're done with the arrangement, you can go to spontaneous or go back to a bridge or a chorus. So how I would prepare for, songs would be, one, listen to them. I mean, if you have a place to practice, amazing, like practice them as many times until it's muscle memory. And then, the more confident you are in playing the actual song, the more, creativity and flow you'll have in the space of the prophetic when that comes, or flowing. So yeah, if I had to kind of cram for 5 songs I didn't know, what I would do is I would take notes. I'd listen to the songs, take notes, and even if I don't use the notes live, if I can visualize the order of the notes, so I'll write intro, and then maybe chart out a groove, or say 4 on the floor, all these like sayings that would make sense to you, that would trigger your brain. Oh yeah, that's what I'm playing. Intro, verse, chorus, out, re-intro, back in, verse, chorus, bridge, out, bridge, 4 on the floor, bridge, build, break, chorus, whatever. Note taking all of that to where when you're playing the song, you can almost visualize the notes when you were listening to the song. Or, you can play with notes too. Literally, shouldn't be shamed at all to play with notes. You would rather play confidently and knowing what the next section is than to play timid and not second guess yourself.
Yeah.
I think as drummers, a huge quality to possess is confidence and knowing that you're the backbone and just going for it.
Love it.
I don't even remember what we were talking about. Preparing
songs.
Yeah. So I think listening and practicing until it's muscle memory, and then note taking if you have to.
When you play, do you bring those notes with you, or at that point you got it memorized?
I mean, usually if I'm notating, it'll be on my phone in notes. And if it's, for someone that I haven't played with before or a new song, I'll, gaze over them in rehearsal or something before we go over it, just to make sure that I'm good. But there's also been times where I've had, 7 songs, 10 songs that I've never played before, and I have them next to Ableton, play the song and scroll through the notes, and I'm just looking at the notes the whole time through rehearsal and even during the set sometimes. Nice. So it all depends on what it is. But
yeah. Another question, Jacob Gifford, how do you like your monitor engineer to mix your mix? Your in-ears? Yeah, in-ears.
Yeah, so we are very fortunate at Bethel with incredible monitor engineers that just make it sound like you're playing on a record, and that is how I like my ears to sound. So as close to, I like to hear everything, playing off of a guitar line or playing off of something the synths are doing, obviously the bass, but being able to have a mix of everything. A lot of times if you have a stereo mix and there's 2 acoustics, I'll put one on the left, one on the right. Same with guitars, I'll have, guitars probably here in the mix, so the guitar player on my left is here, guitar player on my right is here. Not all the way to where they're not, to where it's only in the right or the left, but, probably 60%. Reverb makes the drums sound awesome to me. I put reverb on the snare and toms, just make them sound huge.
Nice. Sweet. Another question from Thomas Kaminsky. Why are you using just one crash?
I don't know. I always have. I think when I first started playing, I only had one good crash, and I just kind of got comfortable with that setup. A good thing about the 24K Light Ride by Zildjian is it can substitute as a crash as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's big and huge, but if I'm on the hats, I don't have any problem using it as a crash as well. So it's kind of like 1.5 crashes.
Nice. And to spin off of that, Darius, he's asking, why are you guys at Bethel using 24-inch? And his assumption is that it would be overpowering if it's bigger. Can you speak to the science behind the larger the cymbal, what effect it has?
So you were breaking up, sorry.
Oh, okay. So
the 24-inch cymbal.
Yeah, so Darius was under the assumption that, I guess, the bigger the cymbal, it's probably going to be louder and more overpowering. What is your experience with the thought behind the 24-inch?
So I don't know the science behind it. I think it's more the darker the cymbal and the brighter the cymbal. So the 24K Light is right in that medium range. It's not too dark, it's not too bright. I think brighter cymbals cut through on the high end a lot more. So smaller rooms, use darker cymbals that would be more, tonally acceptable in a small room.
Yeah.
Question?
I think so. Yeah. Let me just see this last. Guys, we're going to roll the video soon. We have a teaser coming up that we're going to publish tomorrow on YouTube, but you're going to get a sneak peek. Woo, woo. I'm surprised there were no questions about Heir Throne.
I know. We'll just keep it on wraps.
It's all good. So what we're going to do now is, hopefully this works. We queued up the video before. I might have to fast forward through some of it, but I'm going to show you a sneak peek of a video that I created it's more of a vlog style than what we normally would publish, from the People Tour with Hillsong United. So Cobes is in it. Joe was playing for Mac Brock. Dan was there with Amanda Lindsay Cook, Dan McMurray. So we have some footage, and we're gonna roll this. So here it is. Enjoy this short teaser / premiere. Hey, what's up, Worship Drummer family? We are on our way to Scotiabank Arena, and tonight we got Hillsong United People Tour in town, so we're super stoked. We're gonna connect with Simon Cobbler, although he says Kobler, and Joe Volk and Dan McMurray as well, so it's gonna be a super cool day. Glad to take you on for the ride.
Feel how solid that is.
Wow.
So there's the power, and then on the other side, this is the controls the fan speed, and then obviously the lever, which I think is really cool, sleek.
And that's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, a bit of power. So then, once it's on, just turn it up. Usually there's a little notch halfway.
Yeah.
It's a good start.
That's insane. I'm gonna sit on it.
Crank it.
Oh wow. It's like a dream come true.
So if you're packing it in a Pelican,
Yeah.
you need to pull it back down.
All
to
the way down
low
first.
height. So you just, and then 25 pounds of upward pressure. I just put my foot on the base. Pull. So if you want to try it.
Yeah. I'm gonna do this.
This guy here is tapered off
Yeah.
to match the cylinder of this. Right, so once it's on, this spreads open and then locks.
Yeah.
And
I see
inside of here, there's a washer. There's 2 springs and a washer.
it. Yeah.
So when you pull up, those springs engage and
Which-
opens this up to pull up.
Yes, sir. So, can you hear me still?
Yeah, I gotcha.
We're good. So that was a little teaser. We showed the Heir Throne, and this is kind of like your baby, your project.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't know if you want to take a couple of seconds just to, as we wrap up, talk about your vision behind it and the why, and then I think we're ready to take this baby home for tonight.
Yeah, dude. Well, Heir Throne is a company that some buddies and I started. As you saw, it's a air-cooled drum throne. We basically, my buddy Bobby, my buddy JP, and I just wanted to create a product that was high quality in comfort, high quality as far as sturdiness, and something that has never been done before, which is blow air through a seat on a stage. So it's been a long journey, and we're still working towards releasing the final product. So fulfilling the pre-orders that we got, and then currently in the middle of trying to find ways to make it more affordable for everyone. So without losing the quality that we want to achieve. So as an entrepreneur, you learn the market and you have to adapt. So that's where we're at right now. But I'm really excited, and there's other things happening that can't share yet, but could be really, really amazing. So.
Yeah, and I just want to add, as someone, and I know we have a podcast episode where we interview you and the other guys about Heir Throne. That was before that I had a hands-on with it myself. And as you saw in the video that we just teased you with, like, I got to sit on it, got to see the guys sitting on them all night long. And I'll have to say, man, props, because you created something we didn't know we needed.
Yeah, thank you, man. That means a lot.
Yeah,
truly,
so it's a sweet thing. With that being said, as we wrap up, I just want to firstly thank everyone for tuning in. It's been cool to hang and to just see all your questions come in. Love that we get to do this and to take advantage of this platform called Worship Drummer to do these kind of things. With that being said, any words of wisdom that you want to leave with the worship drummers? It could even be like what God is kind of speaking to you lately that you want to just encourage whoever might be listening in.
Totally. Well, I think I mentioned this on the podcast we did with you, but I'll just share it again. It was always, previously, before I went on tour with Mac, it was just always tough for me to motivate myself to read the Word or, get much out of it even when I was reading. And Jesse Reeves, who was playing bass on the first leg of the tour with Mac, is just an incredible dude. And he led these... Well, what he does in Texas where he lives is he does like these home church things where people come and they all read a chapter together, and they ask 3 questions. What does it say about God? What does it say about us? And if this is true, how can we change? And just leading with those 3 questions, really, even now when I read by myself, I ask myself those 3 questions, try to get stuff out of it. And it's just really been amazing for me and eye-opening, and kind of just brought new life into reading the Bible. But yeah, reading with each other, you might take something that I've read 100 times, reading it one time, you might get something completely different that I would have never thought of. And so reading together, we can bounce those off of each other and, really get as much as you can out of a single chapter. We would spend 45 minutes, unpacking all of the juice for the day out of a chapter. So, it's been really eye-opening and really, really amazing for me to, kind of have that new perspective on it.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for sharing that part and spending the time with us tonight. I know you could be doing so many other things. And we should do this again sometime. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And in the comments below, just as you might be signing off, just let us know what future worship drummers you'd want me to interview, and we'll get them on here as best as we can. And we're here to serve you guys and to continue to equip you, to encourage you, and then to inspire you. So thanks so much. Have a good rest of your weekend, your night, in preparation for your weekend. Most of you would likely be serving. Do it with excellence and always put the heart before beat.
The beat.
Yes, sir. All right. Have a good one, everybody.
We nailed that.